Welcome to Dynamos, Dozen, and the Four Podmen with me and Niall, your hosts. I don't even think we need to get into any of the talc stuff today, to be fair. This is a very special and unfortunate episode that we said we put together just out of respect for a young lady who passed away over the weekend and has kind of sent shockwaves, I suppose, throughout the world of professional wrestling, but also throughout the world in general, in terms of anybody that knows the story and has kind of seen the events, I suppose, that led up to it. So myself and Niall today said we would do our own kind of little tribute show for one Shannon Claire Spruill, who is better known as Daffney, who had a great career, I suppose, in the world of professional wrestling from the late 90s up to the early 2000s, up to the, I suppose, mid 2000s, and even today she's well known and well respected within the fraternity, I suppose. So Niall, as I said, no bells or whistles today with intros and stuff like that. More of a I suppose, a tribute. Shows that we don't like to have to do, but at the same time need to be done.
Yeah, kind of. When you hit me up about this and we said we'd do it, like, it kind of reminded me of those dark days of doing those dark sides of the ring and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a sad story, really, when you think about this girl, 46 years of age, I think she was, like, you know what I mean, still a very young woman and stuff like that. But obviously had her issues. Not like no different than any of us. We have our issues, but sometimes for some people it just pushes them over the line. The thing that really got to me the other day was really that video that was she posted on Twitter, I think it was, or Facebook, I think it was, and it was just heartbreaking to see a girl break down live like that, and then afterwards to find out kind of like that, no one had got there in time to save her, and that she had carried out kind of the wish that she had at that time in her mindset.
It was almost, I suppose, the dark side of it. Not to steal a pun or to try and use puns in this show, was more so the fact that the video that we did see, I wouldn't encourage anybody to watch it. To be honest with you, I suppose there's two ways of looking at it, isn't there? Like that, it's a video that will leave a lasting impression on you. Purely when you see someone in so much pain and so much anguish mentally. But at the same time, she was talking about, her brain needs to be kept preserved and needs to be looked at and studied and stuff like that. And it was very difficult for I'm sure anybody even listening to the show who knows the story. It was very difficult to watch and to hear. But for anybody that hasn't heard it as well, put nose of, for anyone that just likes to listen to these shows, and there is plenty of people out there that just like to listen to these shows and whatever we're talking about, I think realistically this is kind of a conversation about a young lady who, did what she did within the world of professional wrestling. But once again, here we are talking about, somebody that's taken their own life in the world of professional wrestling. And I always like to say, Niall, and so do you, that it's easy to point the finger of blame at professional wrestling, the art itself. It's not necessarily that, I don't think, but it is a case of when you hear the old story of the old veterans back in the day saying, have a plan B, you know what I mean? Have something else that you're passionate about, so that if it doesn't go well for you, you can go down that route. Would I be right in saying that, or do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you hear it even today when you go into wrestling schools today and they bring in guest sort of legends and stuff like that. Those guest legends will always turn around to young guys going into the business and will say, lads, always complete your education, always have a degree or a backup, always have something to do, because, you can rise to the top of this game very, very quickly and you can hit rock bottom just as quick. And it's such... when you think about the way it goes and stuff like that, it's such, it's a fine line. I mean, you see it these days, guys that are on top of this game, and all of a sudden they're on pre-shows and they can't deal with it, or they're released or whatever it is, and it's just, it must be a huge fall from grace when you've been there and you've been, say WWE, or at the time she was in WCW and stuff like that. So this is the pinnacle of the sport, really, you know what I mean? And then at that age to kind of be so disturbed about it, and trying to deal with just normal life after playing this character for years. And she seemed like an absolute sweetheart of a
Yeah.
girl. Like she didn't seem anything like the crazy character that she
Complete
played.
opposite.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know what happens. We often say in this game, the gimmick sometimes becomes reality over time if you play it long enough. You
It
know
can
what I mean?
take over. Yeah, can take over.
Yeah, and I just thought it was really sad. And look, we sit here and we do these podcasts. Part of the reason we do these podcasts is we know that people that listen, sometimes are going through some of these issues as well. And we sometimes try and help out that way with these podcasts and the banter and the chat and the fun. We get plenty of emails and messages and DMs and all saying, look, you made my day on that Bread episode, or you made my day on that Own Heart episode, or whatever it is, or football banter or whatever. And it means a lot to these people, and that's why we do it. It's, our channel isn't monetized. We don't make any money. We do it because we love podcasts, we love chatting. And like me and you, how often do we talk each and every week, at least once or twice a week, where we talk about life, not about podcasts. We talk about life and life's challenges and what we're going through. And, you've gone through tough times. I've had my issues at times. Everyone does, you know what I mean? And most of the guys who come onto the podcast often talk about how important it is that they get involved in the episodes, and it keeps them on the straight and narrow. And, when they're going through difficult times, it's a purpose, and it gives them a reason to get out of bed and do stuff and all that kind of thing. So, like, this is not just an episode, obviously, about Daffney and her life and stuff like that, but also, it's a shout out there to people that if you are struggling, get in touch. We're here. Drop a comment, drop a DM. You know how to contact us. We don't have to tell you how to contact us at this stage. If you need to talk, we're always here. We always have an ear. Or we can certainly put you in the right direction, you know what I mean, if we can't. So yeah, always reach out, because what happens is if it gets to the stage where it gets to with Daffney, once that happens, there's no coming back from that, you know what I mean? There's no resolution to that, it's done, and that's the final stage, really,
That's it.
So yeah, just very sad for a young woman that this is how her life ends, you know what I mean? She's not the first lady, not the first women wrestler either who this has happened to. I mean,
Ashley Massaro as well.
Ashley Massaro as well, who was a beautiful young woman as well, with everything to live for, and just like the blink of an eye, it's gone. So
I suppose, with every situation like this, you try and pay a tribute to the person as well, and look at the stuff that they've achieved and look at the legacy they've left. And I think when you look at when you look at the messages and the condolences and stuff like that all across Twitter and social media from people, I thought Mick Foley's one was absolutely beautiful, to be fair. Thought, as only Mick Foley can, he can word things amazingly, and I thought it was really nice. And hopefully on the pay-per-view with all elite wrestling tonight, they kind of pay a little bit of a tribute there as well. I'm sure they will. But
they will.
Let's kind of look at her career in wrestling, because she was always an interesting looking character, wasn't she? My first experience with Daffney was I'm looking at 1999, and I'd kind of had a little bit of time away from wrestling around that period for about a year. A year, 6 months or so, and I went down to the local shop, the Nutmeg in Bray, where we always got our wrestling magazines, and I bought it wasn't Power Slam at the time. I think it was Wow, the World of Wrestling magazine. I think
That's
it was.
Right, the big one.
The big one. They always had a centerfold, and I found this one at Daffney, and I was like, that's my girl. I like her. Because she was actually really pretty, and me being a rock kid, you know what I mean? I was a young man, rock kid. I was like, oh yeah, I think I'll have a bit of that, put the poster up on the wall. Didn't know anything about her, but it was just really intriguing looking character. Very pretty, as you can see in the background there. Lovely smile, very full of life, full of character, I think would be the right way of saying it. And I saw her kind of runs with Crowbar in particular. That was what I first saw. What about yourself, Noel?
Yeah, well, that was kind of where she came into the reckoning, really, and then of course she won the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, off Crowbar, with Chris Candido getting involved at the time.
That's a sad story in itself, isn't it? When you look at the Tammy Sitch situation and Chris Candido,
absolutely. Just to preface that, the Chris Candido, when he passed away, the injury he got that he passed away from, I was at that show. So that was very sad for me. So I have a close connection with that Candido passing. Like, it's very sad.
I'm a big fan of his work as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic.
Absolutely very underrated. Very underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and she was only one of 2 women to hold that belt. Remember, Medusa was the only one who held it as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you know, you're talking about starting off here at a really good level. You know what I mean? But yeah, you know, she sort of drifted in and out of wrestling, didn't she? Really? Like, so she came in and she kind of did stuff, and then she kind of went away, and then she came back in and did more stuff and went away. You know, she did a lot of stuff on the independent circuit, of course, you know what I mean, with XPW and stuff like that. She went into Ring of Honor, of course, for a while. You know, acting as a valet for the Second City Saints, of course, CM
Punk as well. And that was a great fit.
Nice, yeah.
Wasn't it?
Absolutely. And a lot of people may or may not know this, but she was married to Rich Ward, you know. And she separated from him, and she was also the girlfriend of CM Punk for a while, you know. So it's an interesting conundrum, and I'm sure definitely on AEW they'll definitely put out a little tribute there for her. Absolutely deserves it, you know.
Yeah, she did date CM Punk for a while, and for anyone that doesn't know, Rich Ward, obviously guitar player and pretty much the music maker for Fozzy and Stuck Mojo. Hopefully Beyond Dynamos doesn't at some point, still in the pipeline, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, like she was such an interesting character, wasn't she? Because as a valet, she was phenomenal. But like when you look at some of her work in the ring, she could go. Like in a time where, say, women's wrestling, let's be real, wasn't, I suppose, as appreciated or celebrated as it is today, for right or for wrong reasons. That's neither here nor there. But I found, I suppose, what attracted me to Daffney as well was not just, you know, physical looks or anything like that. It was also her gimmick, her charisma. She kind of, I suppose, when I look back at a few little bits today, and she was kind of almost like a bit of a modern Sherry, wasn't she?
Yes, you
know?
Absolutely. Yeah, she came out with them. They started off the. Ed Ferrara came up with that idea that she should be screaming more, and stuff like that. So I mean, hats off to Ed Ferrara for that, because it was absolutely brilliant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes these guys get a lot of stick, but at times they have come up with some little gems. At times,
and you got to give them props when they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But if you really want to see the dynamic on her work, really TNA is the place to go, because she did some fantastic stuff in there that I think most people who follow TNA at the time will remember. I mean, when the beautiful people, when the women's division was at its peak, and you remember the beautiful people with Angelina Love and Velvet Sky and Madison Rain and all, who were absolutely fantastic. She was in there. She was the girl who did the Sarah Palin skits. So she was the Sarah Palin, which couldn't be further from the Daffney character.
Oh, 100%.
Think about it. So this is where you see the dynamic and the range of her work and what she was capable of, you know. But she had some great feuds in there with ODB and Tara, Victoria from WWE, and you know, she worked with everyone in there, you know. I mean, Angelina Love, Lacey Von Erich, beautiful people, you know. She worked, and then she did some work. She did some of that stuff as well with Dr. Stevie, if you remember, when they were doing the Stevie Richards stuff and that crazy Abyss stuff at the time and all, and Dr. Stevie and all. When they were going through the Abyss and the Joe Park stuff and all this stuff, you know? So it was very entertaining stuff, you know what I mean? And she was brilliant as Sarah Palin. I have to say, she pulled it off to a T.
Hot as anything as well. You know what I mean? Just beautiful. Yeah.
But she also came in as well as Shannon, and she was Shark Girl as well. A lot of our people would remember Shark
Girl.
Give me a shell, all that kind of cool stuff. Again, really, you know, at times it could be a little bit cringe, but really
very diverse though.
You know,
very diverse.
And then she was a plant, if you remember, in the audience for the Awesome Kong, the $25,000 challenge. She was one of the 3 girls in the audience that was picked out to face Awesome Kong as well, you know. So like she was very dynamic in her work, in the way she put stuff together, and probably could have achieved a hell of a lot more, I'd say, really, if someone had a kind of just latched onto her a little bit.
I think WWE missed a beat at that time when they were going for, you know, the whole you had to have the implants and you had to look like you were from Playboy and all that. You know what I mean? I think they missed a beat in having a character like that. I mean, we look at I saw a lovely tribute to friend of the show, the family, Soraya Knight, of course, is heartbroken over it, and very, very similar characters, very dark. And I always thought, like, someone like a Paige would have looked up to that kind of character as well. Do you know what I mean? With the kind of goth kind of look. And I suppose one thing I'd like to say as well is that, like, I kind of mentioned earlier on about Mick Foley and the tribute he said, that he paid to, to Daffney. I think one of the things that really stood out to me was the kind of person she was when you heard about the girl that I can't remember the name, the girl that she put over, that all she wanted to do was have a wrestling match, and she had been in a car crash or something, or had an accident. And he put the match up and he said, this is the match I'm talking about, where Daffney put her over and literally gave her moment in the sun. And obviously one of the reasons that Daffney did suffer a lot of breakdowns, which will resonate with a lot of people, including myself to an extent, is that she had that kind of injury that basically stopped her in-ring career before it really got started. And there is where I'd like to talk a little bit about the mental health of something like that. When you've got wings and they're clipped from you, it can really bring you into a dark place. I know it did with me, and I know it's done it with a lot of people. And for this lady, this was her passion. This is what she loved. And the fact that she was able to be so diverse, as we mentioned, showed how much she loved the business. And I think in some of the videos you see, like, she'd put on a bit of weight and she was saying that doctors were telling her she needs to change her diet and blah, blah, blah. But the injuries, sometimes people look at someone like that and say, oh, you've just put on weight and you don't really, you're not looking after yourself. Sometimes it's a case that you can't, physically and mentally you can't, because, it's horses for courses, isn't it? And it's something I'm tiptoeing around, because I don't want to offend anyone with that sense, because people do automatically assume that there's just somebody that's let themselves go. Niall, talk to me about that. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like when you see people and they've lived life as a routine. Like, she would have had a routine as a performer and stuff like that. She would have had dates. She would have had training. She would have had purpose. She would have had, like, her life was probably hectic,
regimented.
And we talk about this a lot. Like you think about it. I mean, we've often said, when you think about someone, say, like Jeff Hardy, I mean, we often say Jeff Hardy's at his best when the company keeps him busy, because when he has too much time to himself, that's when things kind of go astray.
Yes.
And this is kind of a situation. If you're sitting at home and 1 minute, like, you're on a hectic schedule, you're working for all these different organizations or whatever it is, and you're traveling up and down the road with your road mates and your roommates and all that kind of stuff, and you're working your craft and you're developing your craft. And remember, this was obviously a girl who was a very generous girl as well, because in order to be a valet in wrestling, you have to be a giver. You're giving yourself all the time to make this person in the ring a better person.
Yeah.
So you're naturally a generous person in terms of your time and in terms of, your ability within the craft. So I just think, it's one of those things, when you do see signs like that, you see people putting on weight, or, they don't have that desire to get up and go to the gym or whatever their routine was, their walks or whatever it is. These are telltale signs that something generally isn't right. And this is when people need to recognize those signs and step in and go, well, look, how are you doing? Put an arm around someone. How are you doing? What are we doing? Do you want to come to the gym? Do you want to do something? Do you want to try something different? Go for a walk, get out and get air. More often than not, these problems that trigger these things are not life-ending things, really, when you look back on them. It's just the result of it is that you felt you couldn't deal with it anymore. And that's the trigger that lights the fuse that leads you to that path of no return. Yes. And that's really the sad thing about this, you know what I mean? That here was a girl, who probably lit up a room when she was in it, obviously had a fantastic personality, but just, things went awry and things went astray. Like a lot of wrestlers' lives, it happens to. Not everyone stays on top of the mountain. Not everyone has a 20-year career. Not everyone makes millions and millions of dollars out of this business. For everyone that does that, there's probably another 500,000 that never do it. That still wrestle in gym halls up and down countries all week long for 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever it is. And I think that it's just, you know, it's just another sad story. It's
Yeah.
another sad story of a young woman that we've lost again, who had many, many years ahead of her in life, who just ended up going down a dark path and couldn't find a way to climb back out of that dark path. And obviously had people around her who maybe didn't see the signs or didn't recognize the issues or didn't see, or maybe she was quite private in the way she hid these things. And unfortunately, it's resulted in what's happened. And it's
Yeah,
very,
I
very
mean,
sad.
when people pay tribute, and this isn't to knock anybody as well, you know, people pay tribute. I mean, I went back on some of the videos on Instagram and stuff like that, and you know, the signs were there, and I'm sure that a lot of people did privately reach out. You know, I'm sure the likes of these Mick Foley and all these guys reached out to get people real help with this. I mean, you said something, Niall, and I don't know. I suppose this is me kind of reaching out to anybody that's listened to this that has ever had a dark thought, really. And I suppose if anything comes from this, you're going to try and help, you know, the next person that's thinking along these lines.
Yeah.
One of the best things you can do, you know, is just go and be with nature. Do you know what I mean? It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing when you can go for a walk in the woods or go for a walk by the sea, go get that fresh air, as you said, and think things through. Write down stuff, write down how you're feeling, you know, who you think you'd like to reach out to, you know, who you think are there for you, because you'll find that 9 out of 10 times that people that go through this sort of illness, and it is an illness, they feel that they have no one. But it's the brain and the mind and the paranoia all mixed together that you're telling yourself that you're not worth it or you're not good enough. So why would such and such actually be bothered with you? Do you know what I mean?
Or that the result of this is a better place to be than where you currently are.
Yeah.
Because you can't just live with the pain of being eaten up inside and having to deal with the day-to-day issues. And I say to people all the time, like, look, this affects us all.
It does.
Look, if you're not suffering somewhat from it, you know someone who's suffering from it, or you've been there before and you've come out the other side. Everyone gets touched by mental health. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's just, you know, the one thing I said coming out of all this pandemic and COVID and all was that, you know, the one thing it's taught us is we do need to be there for each other more.
Yeah.
We do need to help each other out. There is that community spirit there again now that was lacking, where, you know, everyone was thinking about the extra holiday they go on, or changing their car, or the next house extension, or whatever it is. Those things don't matter.
They don't.
What matters is when community comes together for the betterment of everything else, and that's where it stands together. And I think, you know, this is only really the tip of the iceberg, really, because I said to you already, we've spoke about this offline, these lockdowns that have happened for the last 18 months, 2 years, whatever it is, there's a wave of this coming. There's people in their bedrooms now suffering because now they're trying to be asked to go back out into society, and they don't know how to deal with it. And I said it to you guys even on the show here before. Yeah. I've gone back into the shop now working. It's so weird for me to be back in the shop again, working, talking to people again, trying to communicate with people, all that kind of thing. It takes a real effort at the moment because I haven't had to do it. And my world changed. My world for the last 18 months has been on Zoom podcasting or chatting to you guys on Zoom or whatever it is. We haven't been able to meet up for a beer. We haven't been able to meet up to do a live podcast. We haven't been able to do anything. It's a massive change.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people out there, and if you're anyway fragile at all, or if you do have issues going on, you know, you're being asked to go back and start your life again.
Yeah.
And that takes a huge task. So if there is anyone out there, you know what I mean, just take solace in the fact that you can do it. We're on the other side of this crap that was all going on. Life is about to begin again properly. So you have a lot to look forward to. You know, dust off whatever darkness you've had over the last 18 months with this, your fear of COVID or your fear of vaccinations or whatever it is. It's time to go out and start living again. The light is back and the darkness is gone, and it's time to push on. And that's all I will say to people.
I will say this as well, Niall. Very, very well said. Very well said. And I will say this: anybody that knows either of us knows that we're very, very contactable, very reachable. You know what I mean? I've had people from the United States text me about this podcast, and sometimes they're like, I'm like, who is this person? You know what I mean? This guy's obviously not right. But in the sense, I'll still always reply, because you don't know what's on the other end. Is it somebody that's struggling and they've listened to a podcast, they've listened to a show, and they just want to chat? And like, if you're able to just take 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, a minute out of your time, just to respond to somebody, it could be the difference in, you know, something really catastrophic is what I'm saying. And that goes for anybody. I'm sure people are listening here and they have friends, you know, that they'd like to reach out and contact, and people that they've probably fallen out with over stuff. Like, listen, I'm going to say it like this, and I'm not a preacher in any way, shape or form, but I will say this. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. I've lived quite many lives in this one life. And what I would advise people is reach out to someone. It's not always as bad as you think. You know what I mean? Tomorrow is promised to nobody to steal a Jake the Snake line. There's ways of coming back. There's a great example. When you look at someone like Jake the Snake, you look at someone like, you know, Scott Hall, people like that. I know sometimes we joke on the podcast and we give out about people. And look, I think it's fair for me to say this here. With these podcasts, sometimes we are also playing characters. Same with me as Ian the Dynamo Kelly. Sometimes I'm ripping on wrestlers in the ring like a Marco Stunt or whatever. But I'm telling you, it's because we're trying to grow a show. It's nothing personal on anybody. You know what I mean? It really isn't.
Look, all those guys that we rip on, when we walk into a WrestleCon, we'd be the first one to walk over and give them a fist pump.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? This is not what it's about. I was thinking about it today when I was thinking about doing this show tonight. I was thinking, as content creators, we have a huge role to play in this, because, as I say to people all the time, it doesn't matter to me whether I get 1 view or whether I get 200 views. Yeah. If that 1 view is that person that needs this podcast so much to lighten up his week or her week, I've done my job.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's how I say it. And I say that for podcasters and content creators around the world. You have such a huge role to play in this. And I'm telling you now, this tidal wave that's coming of mental health is going to be worse than anything we've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And I think as content creators and podcasters, we've a huge role to play in this, in providing content, in reaching out to people and being there for people, in responding to comments and DMs and stuff like that. Just take time out of your day. Not everything has to have a dollar price tag on it.
Doesn't cost anything to respond.
No, and you just never know the effect that you're having on someone. It's massive.
Yeah, I think so. And we're talking to our audience now, and I think, you know, there's plenty of people that know someone that knows someone. This is a ripple effect. You know what I mean? This is a ripple effect, because someone knows someone.
Yeah.
Which becomes a listener, becomes then 20 different people that are involved in that one listener's life. You know what I mean? And yeah, 100%. And like I said, Niall, we're not trying to preach around here. We're trying to just, because you can't make sense of mental health. You can't make sense of somebody that takes their own life. You can't. There's none to be found.
Well, the problem is you'll never understand that mindset.
No,
because if you're ever in that mindset, then it's D-Day. You're done. You know what I mean? It's like, so this girl can't come back now and explain to us how she was feeling that day.
It's like Keith Flint from The Prodigy. I remember that one hit me very hard. Keith Flint from The Prodigy went out and had a run that day with a smile on his face. That was the last picture ever taken of him. When people have made up their mind that that's it, they find an inner peace with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just want to get this message out there now before I do. And like, it's just so sad. And don't listen to any of this Bible bashing stuff of that it's wrong and it's a sin or anything like that. But at the same time, what's a sin is not reaching out to people, I think. And that's not a judgment. The sin is not being able to kind of help people see them, as you said, see the warning signs before they get to that level. I think, and that's a sin on the person that knows something's going on. It's
more the reaching in than the reaching out.
Exactly.
Because this girl didn't feel that she had somewhere to go.
Exactly.
know what I mean? And it's, you know, it's the reaching in, it's recognizing, as you said, any of the weight gain, or, you know, out of your normal routine,
Definitely.
or feeling down, or hitting the bottle, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
These are telltale signs. And these are kind of things that us as a human race now need to start reacting to and going, you know, I don't think he's right. And I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call him or her, and I'm going to listen, check in on them and say, look, we talk to people all week long. I talk to people all week long on the phone. Some people I talk to on the phone, I know that they have issues and stuff like that. But these are kind of like my little list of check-ins with people where I go, you know, how you doing? You doing all right? What did you do today? Just a bit of chat makes a huge difference to the day. A simple little DM on Twitter, a simple little Facebook message, a simple little, you know, Instagram post, something like that just makes someone's day.
Yeah.
And when they're feeling real low, it can pick them up and go, yeah, you know something?
Someone cares.
All right. Niall turned around and he cares, so I'm doing all right. And you know what I mean? And if we just check in more with each other and we just be more conscious of the telltale signs as you spoke about, I think some of this we can avoid a little bit. And then obviously the support structures need to be put in place when you recognize these things, that like if you do step into that realm of, you know, approaching this girl and saying, you know, how you doing, that you have somewhere to go with her, that you can take her to get the treatment that she needs to get back to where she needs to be. And unfortunately, in this case, it's too late.
You know what? You mentioned something very, very good. In our position as content creators, as podcasters, as broadcast journalists, to steal a line from Bobby the Brain Heenan. This is something that we have found a passion in. Something for me, as a former pro wrestler, never reached the heights, fair enough, but also had a bad injury that mental illness did affect me, as I've talked on previous episodes, but found something else, you know what I mean? And found a niche and found something that you're going, I encourage anybody, stop looking at that one thing that you can't do anymore. Do you know what I mean? If you're willing to put the work, you know, you hear of people that have broken their leg and the doctor says no, and you see those people coming back. That's just an extraordinary mindset, and all power to those people. It's an amazing thing to see. You know what I mean? Yeah. But for the people that aren't able to kind of have that mindset and that kind of, I suppose, courage and self-confidence, I think would be probably the main thing. The self-confidence is really what it boils down to. Look at something else that you're good at. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many, like, anyone can be a podcaster now. You know what I mean? And I have people always saying, like, how do you set up a podcast? Like, well, it's really easy, man. You just get a microphone
and a camera and you start talking.
You know, when you start talking, you just get a pen and a pad. You think about what, I mean, like, it's amazing to think like this started out from an idea on a toilet bowl. You know what I mean? And people always ask me that, where did it start? I was taking a shit. it's you know, and that's just to bring some light and humor back into it, but it's the truth. You know what I mean? And like, Niall, you always know when Dynamos dozen was starting, like, it really did a lot of people, it really helped them. Do you know what I mean? They loved listening to stories, having people on like Justy and some of the old wrestlers that you get on and stuff like that. And now when you came on board, you obviously have the football stories, and lots of people love the football stories that you've had. You've had some amazing guests on, and you know, the Monday mashup sometimes is the highlight of people's week. You know what I mean? Absolutely. It's like they look, these are little things that you can do, you know. And you made a really good point. I'm going to shut my mouth now after this one, but you made a really good point. Whether it's one person or it's 1,000, someone listens to it, and if that someone has a need for it every week, it's your duty to give it to them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do we say to the guys all the time on the network? If you're going to produce a show and you're going to start a show, it's every week, because if you have viewers, those viewers are going to think you're going to be there on the Monday at 9 o'clock or whatever it is. You have to be there. You can't let them down, because you just don't know the level or the difference or the variety of the people who are tuning in and what they get from it. Some people just tune in because they know us, maybe. Some people just tune in because they've gotten to know us. Some people like the banter and the dynamic between us and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But look, we could be making a huge difference in people's lives, and that's what I always say to people. You just don't know. So yeah, it's just, I mean, getting back to Daffney, it's just, you know, it's it's just heartbreaking for a character to be so full of life, so dynamic, has worked all over the place. I mean, that story where
And
she had
beautiful
decided to,
inside and out as well. You know,
yeah,
even
but even that beautiful story where she decided to retire and focus on her acting career, and she sold her wrestling boots to Mickey James, who was
yeah,
her roommate. You know what a beautiful story that is. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, you can imagine, just imagine how Mickey James is feeling right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you know, all these people who touched her life and she touched their lives. You know, all the wrestlers that she was a valet for, all the fans that she met over the years. You know, and just like that, the light switch goes and darkness, and it's gone, and it's another one we've lost. You know, as you said, we spoke about Ashley Mazzaro as well. You know, it's heartbreaking. You know what
and
I mean? And
I'd
it's
encourage. I know probably not a lot of not a lot of big wrestlers might listen to our show, but some of them might because of the guests that we've had on. It's like I look at someone like Tammy Sitch now who's come out of prison, and it's easy to kind of point the finger. You know, look at someone like Tammy Sitch who's been crying out for help for a long time. Like, we still have her. Let's keep an eye on her. Do you know what I mean? People like that. Keep an eye. There's a reason people go down these dark paths. You know what I mean? So anyone that we feel that, I mean, I have to say, like, what the work that DDP does, it look, we'll do an episode, I suppose, on DDP one day without a shadow of a doubt on the Podmen, and it won't be just about how great a wrestler he was. It's what a human being, like,
you can't quantify the the net effect that man is having, and at the back end of having a fantastic wrestling career,
yeah,
and now at the back end again, another guy who feels that his role now is to give back to these guys who are crying out. I mean, look, where would Razor Ramon or Jake the Snake be? Where would Scott Hall be today if there was no DDP or DDP over? You know what I mean?
and it's great that they're still with us.
Absolutely, it's brilliant. And look, at the end of the day, the world is a much better place when all these people are still in it, because we speak too much. I mean, if you look at the Dark Side of the Ring series, we speak too much about too many wrestlers that we lose far too early. Look at all the brilliant wrestlers we've lost down the years far too early, because we didn't recognize in time the issues that was going on, and people didn't react to it. Support structures weren't there for whatever reason. You know what I mean? We've lost so many brilliant wrestlers down through the years who are we could probably argue, maybe halfway through their lives.
Yeah.
Probably halfway through their lives, you know what I mean? And it's just, it's a victim of circumstance. It was the lifestyle back then. It was like the fall from grace. It was the injury that ended your career. It was, your career being cut short, or a company let you go, or you couldn't find a way. And as you said, you'd nothing to turn to do something different. Like, can you imagine today if we had a podcast out there now that was being hosted by Kurt Hennig or hosted by Rick Rude?
Yeah.
Just imagine how brilliant that would be. You know what I mean? And it's sad when we see these people go. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what level you are at the business. It doesn't matter whether you were the 10 times WWE champion or whether you were a Ring of Honor valet. You left your impression and your mark on a business that we love, and it's just sad. It's just sad.
Yeah, I think the only way to end the show is just to wish Daffney, and I suppose, rest in peace. That's all we can really say.
And just thoughts and prayers and condolences go out
family,
to her family and her friends and her close friends and her close wrestling friends in the wrestling community. I'm sure they're all hurting. You know what I mean? I mean, you've CM Punk, who has to go out and do an amazing job tonight now for AEW, and he's trying to deal with this as well, and he's trying to work his way through it. You know what I mean? I'm sure it's in the back of his mind, and hopefully they'll do a little tribute for her as well. So, in years to come, whoever's attached to her could pull out all out and go, there's a tribute for her. That's what she meant to us, you know what I mean?
And if I could also just follow on with something like that, it's super important to me anyway. Just remember, if you are someone that likes winding people up and you like to be, a keyboard warrior or whatever it is, and I want to say this like with all fucking sincerity, if you're that type of jackass that likes abusing people online, regardless of their status or their non-status, people see this. You know what I mean? People see this, and you don't know how it affects people. We saw that poor Japanese girl, take her own life because of online abuse. This is also another thing. Just fucking leave it out, man. That's all I can really say.
Just figure out that line. I mean, look, we're football fans. We run a football podcast as well. Yeah. We love the banter. We love going in on each other about.
There's a fine line, yeah.
But figure out that line that's like between banter and like dogged abuse. You know what I mean? And stick to the right side of it, basically. You know what I mean? You don't need to totally upset someone and break them right down to have a bit of fun where we wind each other up and stuff like that. Never Absolutely. Let it get abusive. That it's always fun, it's always in jest, and it's always a bit of banter.
Exactly, and that's why I said earlier. I just wanted to, say that from my behalf. I know people have emailed me and text me going, "You've done a 180 on Kenny Omega and all these AEW guys." I'm like, lads. Here's the truth. Someone like a Marco Stunt, even though I call him a little bollocks, do you know what I mean? I want people like that making a living. Do you know what I mean? Because they seem well respected in the locker room. We have to make content that people appreciate, and that's. But I'm telling you here now, gloves off. I don't usually, break the kayfabe on these, as I say, but it's fun, and that's what it is. It's only ever meant in fun. So, just enjoy it because you don't know how long you have these people in any industry, in the entertainment business. It's a different world. There's that girl from, I think, Little Mix today, 39 years of age, dead,
Girls Allowed, Sarah Harding, breast cancer.
Yeah.
39 years of age, absolutely beautiful woman. Great singer. Beautiful woman.
Just
very well, was very successful with the girl band and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And then it's heartbreaking, you know what I mean? It's heartbreaking.
It's not,
we have so much to live for. Live it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think, Niall, that's probably the best way to close it out. Any final words on Daffney?
No, again, just sad. I mean, I went back down today through everywhere she worked and all she did and stuff like that. And like I said, just the dynamic of the girl and, from the screaming to the gothic crazy chick to Sarah Palin, to selling her wrestling boots to Mickey James, you know what I mean? To, imagine being CM Punk's girlfriend to Rich Ward's wife, you know what I mean? It's just, she did what she did, she went through a tough time and unfortunately it ended the wrong way. And look, R.I.P. Daffney, look.
I think from myself and Niall, from the Dynamo Podcast Network, from all our listeners, I'm sure, thoughts and condolences are with the family and friends. And absolutely, rest in peace, Daffney.